Mr. President, I'm here today to talk about another topic. I want to talk for a few minutes about the importance of November as National Adoption Month and to recognize the celebration of National Adoption Day, which will take place on Saturday, November the 23rd. I'm pleased to work with my colleague and Senate co-chair of the Congressional Coalition for Adoption, Senator Klobuchar, again to introduce this resolution supporting National Adoption Month and National Adoption Day. This is the fifth year that Senator Klobuchar and I have worked together on this resolution, and it will be the fifth year, I hope, where our colleagues unanimously support it and do that this week. The Congressional Coalition on Adoption is the largest bipartisan bicameral caucus in all of Congress. And there's a good reason for that. In the Senate and a House where agreement is really often too hard to find, the idea that every child deserves to grow up in a safe, stable home with a loving family is something that not only everybody should be able to agree with, but in the Congress, we have been able to agree with that in a broad-based sort of way. You know, right now, Mr. President, there are more than 437,000 children in the foster care system in our country. More than 125,000 of those are children who are ready and waiting for families who want to get this adoption completed. At the average length of time it takes a child from foster care to adoption once the adoption decision has been made by the adopting family is 19 months. I was at a meeting just last week with the administrator of this program in the administration, who is doing everything I believe they can for the first time in a while to do what they can to reduce this wait. I'd also like to see the State Department, frankly, become more vigorous in encouraging foreign adoptions for those kids all over the world who are in need of families. And I don't disagree with the idea that if someone in Ethiopia wants to adopt an Ethiopian child, or someone in Guatemala wants to adopt a Guatemalan child, someone in Russia wants to adopt a Russian child, all fine. But if they don't have adoptive families in the country they were born in, let's open the door in a more effective way for American families who want to be part of that. There's some good news. Now, for the fourth year in a row, the number of children who were adopting increased. 4 years in a row, more kids adopted than in the previous year. And for the second year in a row, the number of children who entered foster families decreased. Now, I don't want to say that in a way that takes anything away from people who are willing to be foster families, to give that security, that emotional embrace to kids who don't have that at home. Foster families serve a great purpose, but even foster families often become adoptive families, and they do that because they know that that's a situation that becomes permanent. Knowing that you've got a family forever makes a difference. In my home state, in Missouri, there are almost 13,000 kids in the foster system right now, and I want to share a few stories about that. Gabe, who is a 10th grader in Missouri, is a big fan of reading, and he's a big fan of watching movies. He hopes to join the military when he's older. Natalie is 14. Natalie loves to read. She loves to draw. She loves to write. She loves to be outside. If she had a superpower, she says she'd choose invisibility. But this second grader really would like a permanent home. She wants to be a veterinarian someday. She's doing well in school, but the thing she really needs is a home she can always go back to. Reagan and Haley are sisters who hope to have pets in their home. They don't have pets in their home right now. Reagan's a 6th grader who likes to laugh and draw and learn. Haley is a 5th grader who likes to play soccer and spend time with her soccer teammates. Even sisters have different ways they look at the world, but they all would like a family. Last week, I had the privilege to meet with 3 families from Missouri who were here to be celebrated at the Angels in Adoption activity that occurred last week. This is something that we do annually to recognize families that have gone above and beyond what you could expect in the adoption community. This was the first year that there were angels in adoption being recognized from all 50 states and from Washington, D.C. But the three Missouri families I had a chance to spend some time with, one was Justin and Kristen Aiken from Chesterfield. I actually first met Kristen when she came to my office to be an advocate for Be the Match. Now, Be the Match is a federally authorized and funded registry program that matches unrelated bone marrow donors with patients suffering from leukemia and from 70 other fatal blood cancers. Kristen was here advocating for that because she and Justin had lost two sons, Andrew and Matthew, who were diagnosed with a rare disease and were unable to find matched donors. Kristen and Justin, after losing those two sons, adopted William and Christopher. Kristen continues to be a volunteer to help other families trying to find that match, and we're doing better with that program. In fact, we increased that program in our proposed budget for this year by $5.4 million as we increased the National Core Blood Inventory Program also. But as important as that constant effort to do what they can so that other families didn't have happen to them what happened when they lost their two children, was their decision to bring two more sons into their house and to do that by adopting. I also had a chance to meet Zach and Joanna Holden. The Holdens began fostering in May of 2010. They were already parents of three young girls of their own, but they became foster parents to make an impact on the lives of children, knowing that it wouldn't be easy for their family, but it would be an important thing to do for the kids that they brought into their family. Through their 9 years as foster parents, the Holdens have had 30 different foster kids in their house and adopted 2 of those 30 kids through the foster care relationship that they had. In early 2012, they began a small ministry out of their garage called the Caring Closet, which later merged with Fostering Hope, another local foster care ministry. And Joanna, in that ministry and the partnership now with Fostering Hope, gathered and sorted donations, put together packs of clothes, distributed them to local foster families wherever there was a need. Fostering Hope now supports children in foster care. They help foster families as they help foster kids, and they help foster care agencies across several communities in Southwest Missouri. Jody and Mary Ann Allen Parker also shared their incredible story with me. Nearly 2 decades ago, Mary Ann witnessed a tragic circumstance involving the friends of one of her sons. He explained the challenging situation he was in and his family were in, and he asked Mary Ann if he could move in with them. She took this child, and shortly after that, his 2 siblings under her care, along with her own 2 children. And after going to court, Mary Ann was able to establish custody over those 3 kids as well. The oldest of them has joined the Marines, and the other 2 are still at home with Mary Ann. She's given them the structure and focus that they didn't have in their original home, but they have had through her, and also have reconnected with their parents on a much different level than they'd ever had with their parents before. There are lots of stories to be shared. There are lots of families that are waiting to adopt. There are lots of families who haven't thought about it yet who'd be willing to adopt. According to one survey, nearly a quarter of the people in the United States who haven't adopted have considered being an adoptive parent. There are many concerns about adoption that just really aren't there once you get in, open that door, and look at what can happen when you create a forever family for somebody who needs one. The same survey showed that over a third of the participants believed that foster care adoption is expensive. A majority of those considering foster care adoption indicated that receiving financial and emotional support would make a difference in deciding whether to adopt. I'll be sponsoring again this year the refundable tax credit for adoptive parents. About 50% of all the parents who adopt don't make enough money to pay income tax, which says a lot about them, and it also says a lot about the fact that the system we have now, that you get a tax credit, but you only get a tax credit if you pay taxes, only serves to encourage about 50% of the families that are willing to stretch in unique ways and adopt kids. Senator Klobuchar and I have introduced the Supporting Adoptive Families Act to ensure adoptive families have access to pre- and post-adoption services, including mental and physical and behavioral health screenings and assistance. In February, we also introduced the Intercountry Adoption Advisory Committee Act to improve the intercountry adoption process. Since National Adoption Day started in 2000, tens of thousands of children have been adopted. If only a few of them are adopted because this month and this day draw attention to that, that's certainly worth the effort that we'll make on the Senate floor this week to recognize this important month and to recognize next Saturday as National Adoption Day. With that, Mr. President, I yield the floor.